Be careful with this video. It only appears when the losing streak is seconds from ending. Not because luck is changing, but because you are. By the end of this message, you'll realize it's not your turn someday. It's your turn now. Here's what you need to know. You're seeing this video because the answer just changed. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. Your turn isn't coming. It's here. And the reason you can finally receive this message is because something inside you just shifted into alignment. Not the kind of alignment you force through affirmations or vision boards. The kind that happens when your internal frequency finally matches what you've been reaching for. Think about the last few weeks. Have you noticed a subtle change in how you respond to setbacks? Maybe you didn't spiral the way you used to. Maybe you felt disappointment, but not devastation. Maybe you caught yourself thinking that wasn't meant for me instead of, why not me? That shift, that almost imperceptible change in your internal narrative, is the signal. You're not just hoping anymore. You're knowing, and knowing is what pulls winning towards you. There's a concept in probability theory called regression to the mean. It states that after extreme events, things naturally move back toward average. If you flip a coin 10 times and get heads 9 times, the next series of flips will balance out. The universe doesn't actually owe you tails, but statistically, balance restores itself. You've been in a losing streak that defied probability. Not because you're cursed or broken, but because you were being prepared for a winning streak that will defy it just as much. This isn't motivation, this is pattern recognition, and you're finally calibrated to see it. The waiting that wasn't wasted. Every person who wins big has a backstory that looks like yours. Years of rejection, ideas that went nowhere, relationships that didn't work out, jobs that fell through. And from the outside, it looks like they suddenly got lucky. But if you ask them, they'll tell you something different. They'll tell you the waiting wasn't empty. It was education. Neuroscientists have discovered something fascinating about learning. When you fail at something, your brain doesn't just register disappointment, it encodes information. Every loss creates a neural map of what doesn't work. And over time, those maps accumulate into something incredibly valuable: pattern recognition. You start to see the red flags before they wave. You sense the wrong opportunities before you waste time on them. You develop intuition that people who haven't failed as much simply don't have. That's what's been happening to you. While it felt like you were losing, you were actually building the most sophisticated navigation system possible. You weren't being punished. You were being trained. And now, for the first time, you're walking into situations with a level of discernment that makes winning not just possible, but inevitable. Think about how different you are now compared to 3 years ago. How much faster you can assess whether something is aligned. How much clearer you are about what you actually want versus what you thought you should want. How much less time you waste on people who aren't genuinely invested. That clarity didn't come from winning. It came from losing enough times that you finally learned what losing looks like before it happens. This is the part most people miss about success. They think winners are people who never failed. But winners are people who failed so many times, they developed immunity to the fear of it. They're not braver, they're more informed, and information is what turns chance into choice. There's a concept in systems thinking called requisite variety. It means that the system with the most flexibility wins. In any competitive environment, the person who can adapt, pivot, and respond to the most variables is the one who comes out ahead. You've been building requisite variety without realizing it. Every time something didn't work out, you adapted. Every time a door closed, you found another route. Every time you got knocked down, you learned a new way to stand up. You weren't just surviving, you were evolving. And evolution is what separates people who get lucky once from people who keep winning. Luck is random. Evolution is cumulative. And you've accumulated enough now that the wins aren't going to be flukes. They're going to be the natural result of who you've become. The shift from chasing to attracting. Here's where the energy changes. Up until now, you've been chasing, applying for things, reaching out to people, putting yourself out there and hoping something sticks. And it's exhausted you. Because chasing comes from a place of lack. It sends the signal that you're trying to get something you don't have. And that signal, whether you realize it or not, affects how people and opportunities respond to you. But something shifted recently. Maybe you stopped checking your phone every 5 minutes waiting for a response. Maybe you stopped refreshing your email hoping for good news. Maybe you just relaxed. Not because you gave up, but because you stopped needing it so desperately. And the moment you stopped needing it, you started attracting it. This isn't mystical thinking. This is behavioral psychology. When you operate from a place of desperation, people sense it. Not consciously, but instinctively. Desperation creates a kind of energetic static that makes others uncomfortable. They can't explain why, but something feels off, so they pull back. Not because you're not good enough, but because the frequency you're broadcasting is misaligned with confidence. But when you shift into a state of calm certainty, when you know your value without needing constant validation, you broadcast a completely different signal. People are drawn to it. Opportunities open up. Things start flowing in ways they didn't before. Not because the external world changed, but because your internal state did. Think about someone you know who always seems to land on their feet. They don't chase opportunities. Opportunities find them. And you probably thought they were just lucky or well-connected. But if you pay close attention, you'll notice something else. They carry themselves like they already have what they need. There's no desperation, no anxiety, just a quiet confidence that everything will work out. And because they believe it, other people believe it too. That belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's where you are now. You've stopped chasing, not because you stopped caring, but because you finally understand that your value doesn't increase when someone recognizes it. It's fixed, and the right people, the right opportunities, the right moments will recognize it when the timing aligns. Your job isn't to convince anyone. Your job is to stay ready. In decision science, there's a concept called the paradox of choice. When people have too many options, they freeze. But when they see one clear, confident option, they move toward it quickly. You've been presenting yourself as one option among many, trying to prove why you're the best choice. But now, you're presenting yourself as the choice. Not through arrogance, but through clarity. You know what you bring. You know what you're worth. And that certainty makes the decision easy for everyone else. This is the shift that precedes every major win. The moment you stop trying to be chosen and start knowing you already are. The timing that couldn't have come sooner. Here's the hardest part to accept. The timing was always going to be now. Not last year. Not when you first started trying. Now. Because you weren't ready then. Not because you weren't good enough, but because you hadn't learned what you needed to learn yet. The universe doesn't withhold. It sequences. Think about a fruit ripening. You can't force it. You can give it water, sunlight, the right conditions. But the ripening happens on its own timeline. If you pick it too early, it's bitter. If you wait too long, it rots. There's a specific window when it's perfect, and that window isn't random, it's biological. The fruit needed every single day of growth to reach that point. You're the fruit, and every day you spent waiting was a day of necessary ripening. The rejections weren't setbacks, they were refinements. The delays weren't punishments, they were preparations. And now, finally, you've reached the point where everything you've been building toward can actually hold weight. Developmental psychology shows that growth happens in stages. You can't skip steps. A child can't learn to run before they learn to walk. Not because running is harder, but because running requires neural pathways and muscle coordination that only develop through walking first. You've been walking, building the foundational pathways that will allow you to run. And you're finally at the stage where running is possible. This is why early success sometimes destroys people. They win before they're ready to handle it. The attention overwhelms them. The pressure breaks them. The responsibility crushes them. You've watched it happen. People who blow up overnight and disappear just as fast. Not because they weren't talented, but because they hadn't built the internal infrastructure to sustain success. You have. Every loss taught you humility. Every rejection taught you resilience. Every delay taught you patience. You're not just ready to win, you're ready to keep winning. Because you've already survived everything that breaks people who weren't prepared. And here's the part that will make everything make sense. The wins that are coming aren't going to feel like luck. They're going to feel like finally. Like the universe is catching up to what you've known about yourself all along. That's not arrogance. That's recognition. You're not becoming someone new. You're finally being seen as who you've been all along. In quantum physics, there's a principle called superposition. A particle exists in all possible states until it's observed. Then it collapses into one reality. You've been in superposition, existing as both the person who keeps losing and the person who's about to win. And this moment, right now, is the observation, the collapse into the reality where you win. You'll look back at this time a year from now and realize this was the turning point. Not because of one big break, but because of a series of small alignments that started happening right after you saw this. An opportunity you almost missed. A conversation that led somewhere unexpected. A decision that felt small but changed everything. That's how winning works. It doesn't announce itself. It compounds. And you're finally at the point where the compounding is about to become visible. This video found you because you're done waiting. Not because you decided to be done, but because you've completed the cycle. You've learned what you needed to learn. You've grown into who you needed to become. And now the only thing left is for the external world to reflect the internal shift that already happened. Your turn isn't coming. It's here. And this time, when you win, you'll know exactly why. Not because you got lucky, because you were ready. This video found you once. That was all it needed. The rest is momentum.